The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our session number 3 of our new Relic platform fundamentals class. So this is
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are.
depending if you're east or west. So after this, you will be at the halfway mark. All right, we will have covered a fair bit about applications and some infrastructure related stuff. But remember, we still have a whole other side of the stack that we need to look at. We also have to look at visualizing our data better. So that'll be, where we go into the querying. We're going to do that stuff next session. But for today, our agenda is to teach you guys about alerts. We want to get you understanding how alerting works in New Relic. The other thing that I want to point out, I was talking to Ganesh about this just before. The other thing I want to point out is that, so today's session is kind of really one part of a sort of a 3-step process that we want you guys to go through. So today is all about just learning alerts, learning how to apply them and create them and use them in New Relic. But once you know how to do all that, you then want to take it to the next level and learn how to improve the quality of your alerts and how to manage your alerting better. Right, so I'll be talking about things like, alert fatigue and things today, and you can create alerts with that stuff in mind, so that they're better designed alerts right from the start. But when we go to phase 2, it'll be more about understanding your current alerting environment and being able to reduce noise and increase impact of your efforts. And then there's a phase 3 as well on top of that, which is phase 3 will then be like an assessment on you guys, right? This is where you guys in your phase 2 will go and baseline your own systems and understand how your alerting is effective and not effective. And then your phase 3 approach is, you've had the baseline, it's been established for a while. Now let's look at what improvements can be made, have been made, and track our progress from there on, right? So understand mechanisms, that's today. Baseline becomes your next step, and continual improvement of your alerting mechanism becomes your phase 3. So this is a very kind of important foundation stone for a multi-step approach that you really need to take to alerting. Did you have any ideas on that, Ganesh, yourself?
Nope. I think that's the right way to go about it, because we see a lot of customers doing the same thing, just going and then randomly setting up alerts and not really getting the value out of alerts and alert policies, right? So the right way to go about this is what you just explained, Dan. I think we should, yeah.
But Ganesh, I want to be alerted when my CPU goes above 80%. And the reason why I want to be alerted, the reason why I want that alert is because I can think of it. I can just go,
Correct.
well, yeah, I want to be notified of that. It's a thing that I can be, so that's why I want to be. And one of the things that I want to point out here is, this is not really a good way to design your alerts. Right?
Yeah.
I think you would agree with me. All too often we see alerting systems that are in place because they can be, right? I can alert on this, therefore I do.
That is correct. Yep.
Step back. I know you can alert on that. Do you really want to? If that system does that thing, does it have any material impact to you and what you need to do? Oh, no, I just want to know. Yeah, I don't know about that.
Remember, but is that really adding value?
Yeah, the telemetry is coming in anyway. We do record that thing happened. So do you want to be notified about it, or do you just want a record of it having happen, because the telemetry will keep that there anyway, right? Yes, you'll see that your CPU spiked for 5 minutes 3 hours ago. I mean, it'll be there. Do you want to be woken up over it? Right? So this is the kind of thing that we want you guys to start thinking about, because yeah, all too often it's all about, I can alert on this and that and this and that and this and that, so let's go and do it, right? Bang, 10 policies, 50 conditions, a lot of noise, and then you guys come back to us and go, oh, we can't work these New Relic alerts. Oh, it's just telling us too many things and we can't manage it. So we're going to take it right back to the beginning. Give me 1 second. I'm opening up the relevant slide deck.
Today it looks like we have 100 plus attendees, which is really good.
Yes, guys, as per usual, if you have colleagues that you know are supposed to be here and are mysteriously absent, message them immediately and tell them that they must attend, right? Here we go. This is our slide deck. Don't worry, I am not going to go through a huge amount of slides with you, but I definitely want to cover just a couple of things. All right, so I think what we can do, I know we said this is all about alerts, but part of our alerting is I also want to introduce you to this guy here, Applied Intelligence, okay? So we're actually going to start off there, right? And this is what New Relic does from an Applied Intelligence perspective, okay? And then from there, we'll move into the alerting side of things as well. So let's see. You probably have this kind of thing going on. Be interested to get some feedback here if you guys are in agreement or disagreement with this. But we do find quite often that people have all these dashboards set up. They've got a lot of things that they can look at, but when it comes to it, and when they've really got an issue, when you got 50 systems all screaming red at you, you don't necessarily know which one you should be looking at first. So let's keep our eye on the ball, guys. Our eye on the ball should be our MTTX, right? It's our mean time to whatever it is you're trying to do. Like, what are you trying to improve here? Often that'll be resolution, but it can be any other. I mean, look, I even have a slide on it, I think. Do I? Yeah, that one looks like it is. Yeah, you see, we might be, we're attempting to improve our mean time to detection, our mean time to know, our mean time to understand, our mean time to investigate, our mean time to resolve. So there's a lot of MTTs, right? So what I'm trying to get at here is that we do have some things in New Relic that can assist in this kind of a scenario. So the scenario I'm talking about here is where we have multiple systems. So it could be things outside of New Relic as well. Okay, we've got all these different things, and something occurs, something bad that causes a whole bunch of systems to start screaming at you, right? If you've ever been in that situation, which I have been in those situations before, in the olden days, where I used to be infrastructure admin, it can be a bit nerve-wracking actually when you're being hit with all these alerts from all over the place, because you're not 100% sure that they even are all the same issue. It could be multiple different issues. Maybe not, but sometimes it is. So we want to try to reduce that noise in any way possible. Now, part of what we do in Applied Intelligence is detect anomalies, which you can see here, right? So that's one of the main functions. So it's called, what's it called? Proactive detection. Yeah. So we look at your data and we see, this becomes your normal data because we're watching it for a while. And then all of a sudden your data does something that looks very different to normal. And it comes up as an anomaly, right? Otherwise known as an anomaly, right? Important to understand, these are not alerts, but we can be notified on them. So I just want to draw your attention to that. We do have this thing called anomaly detection, and you can configure it where anomalies may go to a early investigation team, for example. Like, is this a thing or is it not a thing? Different to alerting, which are known things, and they should go to appropriate notification channels. So just one thing to point out there. Now, reducing alert noise, smarter escalation, this kind of thing. What are we talking about here? We're talking about the other aspect of applied intelligence, right? Which, in fact, now is probably as good a time as any to bring up my. Oh, here's my instance. Right, what are we doing? I'm going to go back home, and I'm going to show you the things that I'm talking about right now. Okay, so here you notice we have alerts and AI. We've grouped it all together. This is our topic of the day. This one tab here, and I just mentioned this guy, proactive detection. If you wonder, what does that do? That's the anomaly guy. Right? Now, the other one, which I'm about to describe to you, is this guy here, incident intelligence. Right? Now, so you can see under Alerts AI, this is where we find it. You see it's got quite a number of things that we can configure. We're not going to spend a great deal of time on incident intelligence today. This is really just to introduce you to the product and show you what it does and how it can work for you. A lot of these things, well, I mean, there's a few bits that you would have to configure, but in terms of things like the decisions, there's a lot of that is just taken care of out of the box, right? You can tweak it if you want, but you don't have to. Now, incident intelligence. Big bad thing happens. I get many notifications from a lot of different systems, right? I might have team A over here and they're using PagerDuty, and I got team B over here and they're using, I don't know, New Relic. Team C, they're using something else, and the same issue gets detected by all the teams, and all these alerts start firing, and they get sent to all these different teams. A lot of the time, it's the same issue. So, what we propose here at New Relic, the proposal is this: funnel all of those alerts into one system in order for that system to filter out all the noise for you so that it can learn and detect and correlate. Actually, that thing coming from system A, some of those fields correlate with this notification coming from system B. They happen at the same time as well. So I've got some fields that match. I've got a time correlation here. I actually think that the notifications firing from system A are the same problem as what I'm seeing from system B. Now I'm going to enrich the data. So you don't lose any data when you do this. What we do is we add all the extras into one big thing, and then we present you with an issue that might have been otherwise 6, 7, 8 different incidents, but they get correlated together and rolled into an issue and then sent to a destination of your choice. So all of it is configurable. If I run you through just the basic menus here, you can see some of what we are trying to do, like right here, front and center, we want to reduce noise, okay? And we do that by correlating issues together. It can be for things, and see here, these are all different reasons why we might think problem A is actually the same as problem B. It could be because the alert message was the same, right? The alert came from the same Kubernetes cluster. It was the same target ID. It was the same target name, like the same system is firing. So there's a whole lot of issues here. Now, all of it is configurable. And that is done down here where you can see the decisions. Now, we've even got a number here. This is showing you decisions that, this particular rule has been applied, right, that many number of times. And we can kind of train the system as well. We say, do we think that that rule was a good thing or a bad thing? And we can tell it, yeah, you got that right or you got that wrong, right? And it will start to prioritize these decisions based on your feedback as to whether or not it's doing well in its correlation decisions. So you can come in, you can, let's look at this guy, for example. So you can make your own ones, right? If you make your own, you'll have a username here. This one was developed by New Relic AI, so it's just the system out of the box says, yeah, you probably want to match these things. And here is the decision logic, right? And this is where we look at one thing coming in, and then we look at something else coming in, and we're saying, okay, well, in this case, if they're from the same source, that's what this is saying. If the source on the first thing that I'm testing against equals the source on the second thing, well, and the entity GUID is the same, okay, that's probably a pretty close correlation in that case. And the time window in which I received those two segments is very close together, or in this case, 20 minutes. We will say that we believe those two incidents coming in are actually the same incident, right? So you can read all this logic yourself on any of these. Same New Relic target name. So here we go. Similarities, we're just trying to look at New Relic entity name equal New Relic entity name. If those two values match, forgetting everything else, it's a correlation. And then you can come in here. This one here had 66. And you should be able to see, yeah, these are the specific violations that all got correlated. Right, so these are all the incidents here, right? They're all closed at the moment. So again, talking about one product at the moment, just discussing incident intelligence, and this is the decision-making criteria on how incident intelligence decides to correlate stuff, right, and then enrich stuff. Now, a couple of other things. You define where incident intelligence is going to accept data from. And these are our choices, right? So there are some common ones, Prometheus, AWS, Splunk, PagerDuty, the good old catch-all anything. So anything that you can point to the REST API will be able to be ingested and tested against the correlation decision criteria. So I can reasonably confidently say, Ganesh can probably confirm, we can ingest from mostly anywhere or from many sources. We can ingest from many places, and we can then correlate our decisions. Then we have destinations. So this is not saying where to send our result when it pops out of the machine. This is saying these are the possible locations where we can alert against. So if we are to notify, these are the possible places. So yeah, PagerDuty, ServiceNow, two most common ones. Also, notify to anywhere, right? Our catch-all with the webhook. But it's this guy here. It's the pathways, right? Our pathways are. It's like a routing table. Okay, so this says which destination to send based on certain criteria, right? And you can do that here. You come in and add a new pathway, and you just build the logic saying, okay, well, if it came from these sources, if it met these decisions, then send it to this destination, that kind of thing, right? Or you could do something simple like put a star, which essentially means anytime you do anything, send it to this output. And then you've got some system settings that allow you to just tweak the timings, right, on the correlations. Right, so that's a little bit on incident intelligence. How about Ganesh? Any additional things you want to add there that maybe I forgot to mention?
No, I think you have mentioned everything, Dan. The only thing is that I see few SRE and DevOps teams getting confused with incident intelligence and then proactive detection on the very first day. So the things that I usually recommend to my customers or the teams who I work with is that, you know what, first go ahead, set up your alerts properly, make sure that you're getting the right kind of alerts. And then once you know that you have set up alerts for everything that you should, not can, that you should, um, and which is going to be a really good value add for yourself, then start exploring incident intelligence and make sure that from all of the sources that you already have, that you're already receiving alerts, you streamline them to reduce the alert fatigue. Right. So the first one is make sure your alerts are good, alerts are set up, you're receiving alerts for everything that's critical. Then proceed to the incident intelligence, which is exactly what you mentioned in the very beginning of the session, where alert quality management, right? First, set up alerts, make sure everything is working, and then jump to the next step. This is kind of a next level of maturity in alerting.
Totally correct. And Ganesh, you reminded me of something very important, which I like to remind people of. Everybody knows it, but people forget it. And it's especially applicable for something like incident intelligence. It's the ancient principle, right? Garbage in, garbage out. Right. That's exactly what you're just highlighting there. If you have terrible alertings, outside of incident intelligence, this thing is not the cleanup crew, right? That's gonna come in and magically solve your problems when your alerting is a complete mess, right? It doesn't do that. But if you've got good alerting on relevant systems, it will further reduce noise, right? And it can,
Yep.
so that's what it's good at. It's designed to say, this series of good alerts over here are actually the same thing as this series of good alerts over here. So I'm going to correlate all this stuff together. But the whole idea behind it is that the alerting in the first place was necessary to begin with, right? So you might have, really good storage alerting, right? And then that can be correlated with, I don't know, really good, really good database alerting, for example. And you can have decisions that then say, all right, well, actually that and that are important and they do need to be correlated together as being the same issue. But when you
Yep.
have kind of rubbish alerts over here and rubbish alerts over there, yeah, we can correlate them and you get less noise. But the end result is you got correlated rubbish, right? So it's such a good point that you bring up, because I don't want you guys to think that this is the silver bullet. This is the thing that solves your problem, right? Actually, if you want the silver bullet, that's you guys come back to the advanced session on uptime, performance, and reliability. Come in on that one. We talk about alert quality management. That's where we properly baseline you and we see how messed up everything is, and we have a good starting place to start cleaning. Okay, but it involves, there are steps that you need to take. You need to do stuff to make sure your alerting is really good. This is great at making sense of disparate alerting systems that are set up well. Okay, so that's incident intelligence, and I 100% agree with you, Ganesh. We look to this and we apply this after we have some coherent alerting in place that's already working. So this is just then taking it to the next level, right?
Yep.
It's not your first level solution, but I like to bring it up because we don't spend a huge amount of time on it in this session, but people often ask about it, especially because it's here under alerts and AI. So what I do is I come in and I talk about, okay, guys, here's what proactive detection is. Here's what incident intelligence is, right? We'll talk about that stuff, and then we will go back to our basics, which is what we really need to cover. What's an alert policy? What are the conditions? How do they work? What is the incident preference? How does it affect what incidents get created? What's a violation? That's the content. This here is our main content for today. Now, let's just have a quick look at questions coming through, because I can see you guys have been writing in quite a number of questions, which,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah. So
you guys know we love questions.
someone said there was. Yeah. Someone said there was an announcement about NPM. So now NR is just not APM. So to answer this question in an easy way, New Relic has never been just APM. It has evolved in multiple phases in breadth and depth of starting from infrastructure to your ping checks to your browser front-end monitoring, operational efficiency, everything. And just network is just one other jewel in the crown that New Relic One just got. And we also have, are you suggesting NR to be monitor of the monitors? Do I take the one then?
I'm gonna, yeah, I'll take a stab at that. So can we set New Relic up to be the monitor of monitors? Yes, we can. Yeah, I'm just gonna put it out there. Yeah, we can do that. Right. So one of the things with this, and actually this is something that I do cover in another class. It's part of UPR, right? Uptime, performance, reliability. It's in the alert quality management class. You can send other notifications into New Relic for analysis, right? There's nothing stopping you doing that. I mean, we said in the very first session, right? NRDB, open telemetry, will accept your data, and it can come from just about anywhere. Well, that data might be another alerting system. Why not? Why couldn't it be? It totally can be. So now, if you want to correlate yourself, you can do it. All the incidents coming from all different systems, funnel them into one system, have a nice big dashboard up on it, and we'll go through what those things mean, right? How many did you have this week compared to last week, right? What's your mean time to investigation? How long were they open for? How long did they take to close? All that stuff, right? So I think New Relic is very well positioned to be a monitor of monitors, because actually we're a monitor of everything else already. So why not be a monitor of the monitor? You know, as Ganesh just said, you know, we look at the front end, right? From any, we'll do any browser, we'll do any mobile device, right? So there's your front end covered, right? Anything that the customer is going to use to consume your service. We look at all the apps. There's 8 languages supported. We look at the underlying infrastructure and the different technologies surrounding that. Now we hit the glue in between it all as well, which is the networking. So we do every layer. We do the glue between the layers. And we do the observability system that looks at the whole thing. So, yeah, that's the long way of saying yes, right? Yes, we can do that. Right. There's another thing. There's another statement I can see here that I quite like as well, and it's sort of where does New Relic
or Dan?
Yo, hang on here. All right, one sec. I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
Temporarily, okay.
Sure.
Temporarily, I'm just gonna. How is that cleared up the audio? Can you hear me a little bit better?
Yes, much better.
Okay, cool. I'll leave it like this for a moment. It'll hopefully fix itself up, and I'll turn my video back on in a bit. But I just want to draw you guys' attention to so something that was said a couple of minutes ago in terms of you know, what space does New Relic work in? Like for example, things like ITOM or ITSM, right? And I think it's a really good observation. You know, and to give you a very simple answer, I'll give the one-word answer, and I might throw it over to Ganesh, see what he says. But I'll say yes, we do work in the ITOM space, and we also work in the ITSM space. So I'm saying, I said one word, but it's a two-word answer. It's yes and yes. Yeah. But what are your thoughts on that, Ganesh?
So IT operations management is something that's our SRE teams has been using New Relic for quite a lot of time, right? So how do they use this? Purely depends on the use case. So for example, the previous company that I worked for, who was also a customer of New Relic, we use New Relic purely for in again a sub part of DevOps team is completely who takes care of cloud infrastructure, right? So and we use New Relic especially for them to just monitor the infrastructure, get alerts on top of them, and set up ping checks on how few of their services, who few of the services are working. And in fact, they also use this for DNS health checks, right? So while the tool provides the full stack observability and then gives you capability to monitor different layers of your architecture, it's totally up to you to use it for what kind of operation management that you want to do. It can be IT or it can be application level, or it can be anything beyond that. Probably log management. What do you think, Dan? Does it answer?
Yep, I think it's pretty good. Yep, good answer. There's a couple of other things in here as well. A couple of other comments with regard to incident intelligence, right? So things like how are the correlations configured? So yes, they are automatic in that there are a series of decisions that are available out of the box, right? You can see that on the screen at the moment. So most of these, well, not all of them, but like you see here, created by, right? So you can see New Relic AI, right? Most of them are just these decisions that come with the system. All right, no configuration required. But as I said, you can create your own decisions if you want to, right? And you should definitely aim to reduce the amount of input noise that comes in, because yes, you will. That will affect the the output as well. And the other comment that I had here is yeah, like, so in this case, what is the output, right? So let's see if we can find some output in this particular account. I don't actually know if there's any open issues here at the moment, but yeah, let's just see what we can see. So here, hopefully this will put a bit of light on the topic. And I totally understand that if you don't see the output, you don't see how it might help. Okay, I'm just trying to look for a good one that might be able to show us something. I mean, let's just start here, right? We'll look at this guy, right? We've got an active issue, okay, and it's critical. It was created on a couple of days ago, and you can see it's been going for over a day. Now let's go into it, right? You can see that there are 195 incidents here. If you see that. So this is what an issue looks like. So it's critical priority, issue is active, right? There you go, 100, you can see 195 incidents. And what's happened is they've been correlated into a single issue, right? So we can look at that as being, oh wow, that's a very big, noise reduction, which it is. The other way you can look at it is in, well, perhaps there's a fair bit of noise here, and maybe what we want to do is also look at even reducing the total number of incidents that are generated in the first place. So, Ganesh and I a moment ago mentioned that ideally you want your alerts to be clean before they come into this system for processing, and that's definitely true. But on the other hand, it can help you highlight some areas where you probably have a fair bit of undue noise. Okay, so yeah, over here we've got memory used versus memory requested as a percentage over 75%, right? So that looks like what that alert is, and you can see it's a 1 minute alert. So the damn thing's firing, looks like, all the time. Like, yeah, look, 11:35, 11:35, 11:33, 11:31. You know, and each one of these. So this is a really noisy policy, and incident intelligence has gone, I think they're all the same issue. So not only does it then just reduce it all down, you say, okay, I got one issue on this one system here, but I'm also highlighting for you that you've been told 195 times about this one issue. So A, you can go and solve the memory problem, right? B, you can probably change the alert so that it doesn't generate as many incidents in the first place. And you can see this is just the incidents that have been correlated, but we can scroll down. We can see the incidents have been correlated into an issue, and the issue has picked up on the saturation signal, right, on these particular components. So it's saying, okay, this is what we think it's all about. This is the AI telling you what it thinks of the issue itself. It tells you what entities are involved in this particular issue, right? It's got there's a root cause analysis. If it's able to find something, it'll show you deployment events. This is why last week did we do? I think we talked about deployment markers. We didn't do a lab on it, did we, Ganesh, last week?
Yes, we did. We spoke about deployment markers last time.
Did we do a lab on it? Did we?
No, we didn't do a lab on it. We just did a demo of it during APM.
All right, great. We might demo that again today and maybe do a little lab on it because we should have the time to do that. But these are really important, right? Because as you can see, we take stock of what deployments are on those systems around about the time that these issues are occurring, and it's no surprise that often if there's a deployment on and issues at the same time, well, probably one's related to the other. So we put those up. If you've got logging being sent through, logs can be attached and we can enrich our issue with log messages as well. And then further down, we can see a timeline of when the events actually occurred. So you can see here a whole bunch are happening here. I can mouse over it, see the correlation event, why we decided it was a correlated event. More things firing here, more things firing there. They're all being added to the same issue timeline. And then here, we even have the individual decision-making criteria. So on whatever it is, 195 incidents. No, I'm not going to go through each one of these with you. But you can see it tells us why it was actually correlated, right? So it says, okay, well, we noticed the namespace tag was the same, and in that case, we correlated one to the other, right? All the while helping to reduce overall noise. So, very good call out on that one. Can you please see the output? What do I get when I enable this thing? You get, well, in that example, you get 195 incidents reduced down to a single issue through the decision logic applied in incident intelligence. All right, and that's really the objective there. That's what we're trying to do. All right. Oh, there's one or two cost questions on there as well. I think I saw. If you want to get to those, Ganesh. I haven't.
I just replied on those It purely the cost for this one purely depends on the number of events that are processed by incident intelligence.
I was going to
So
say,
let's say you have yeah, go ahead.
yeah, it's still per incident, yeah.
Yeah, it is still per incident. Yeah.
Yep.
So if you have like 1,000 events that are getting processed, then it depends on the number of events that it's going to scan, run the ML algorithm on top of it, and then create that one individual incident on under incident intelligence, and that is what you would be costed for all the events.
All right. Okay, cool. Thanks. And then another question just came through now. So question was, are these correlations machine learning based or rule based, right? And I would actually say they're both, because you can define your own rules and create your own decisions, and all of those become rule based. But it will also learn over time, and it creates its own rules. So yeah, we tackle it from two angles there. All right, let me see. Where am I at? Got plenty more things to talk about with you guys. I did have something. Yeah, I wanted to show you guys this, right? This is effectively the flow chart of what goes on. So you define, and it shows about sources, destinations, pathways, decisions. So you define your sources, you define your destinations, as you can see, and then in the middle here, this is where you've got your decision logic, and you also have your pathways. So we correlate, we enrich, and suppress too many issues being sent out. And then based on your pathway logic, it will pick a destination and send it out there as well. And then at each step of the way, you can see this is effectively what goes on, right? So normalize the data coming in, then enrich it, evaluate what to do with it, and correlate it if needs be, then finally send out a notification. Okay, so can I repeat the explanation of fixing the memory issue or reducing the noise? Yeah, sure. I wasn't talking about how to fix the memory issue as such. I was more saying, for example, in this particular issue, when I go to it, damn, opened and closed it. All right. Yeah, so when I load up the issue, what I really meant when I was talking about fixing the memory issue or reducing the noise is that I open this up and I see two problems, right? Problem number one is that I see something that just seems to be alerting unnecessarily. Do you really need this thing to be screaming at you every minute? Which it pretty much is. So that will be, I might need to go back to my alert policy and change the threshold on this or the frequency on this, something like that. And how would I fix it? Well, maybe I might say 75 is too low. Like maybe if I'm ignoring this and it's above 75%, do I really need to be notified if I'm ignoring it anyway? Right? So set the threshold at a level where you will take action. Or another way to put it, set the threshold at a point where you want to be woken up at night if this criteria is met. So if you want to be woken up when the memory used over memory requested is above 75%, then this is a good value, right? But do you want to be notified the moment it crosses? Like it's gone over for 1 minute? Or are you more interested in if memory utilization goes above the threshold for a half an hour, then wake me up? right? That'll make it less noisy. So maybe increase the time, maybe increase the threshold. Those things will stop the incidents being fired as often, right? But I'm tackling it from an incident perspective. The other thing you might want to do is, if this thing is a genuine issue, right? Well, maybe you need to actually allocate more memory, right? And that would be the other side of it. So you can resolve it. You can resolve the noise by, actually looking at it from fixing the problem point of view, or adjusting the thresholds point of view. So maybe the thresholds are wrong, or maybe you actually need to allocate more memory, right? So that's really what I was talking about. There's a number of different approaches you can take there. All right, so there's another question, auto remediation. What about auto remediation? That's a good question. Do you want to take that, Ganesh? Because there is something that we haven't actually talked about,
Yes.
but now that you've mentioned it, it's sort of like, ooh, maybe we should mention that thing.
Yeah, I think we should. So auto remediation is something that we refer as self-healing and auto-healing and self-healing. Recently, there is also a webinar that was done talking about this. And that is where we have a set of recommended options on how, based on a specific incident, how the users can restart a service or restart a server. We also have, in the demo, we showed our integration with Rundeck, and we also suggested a set of steps where the customers can, um, you know, fire a webhook to Rundeck, and Rundeck is going to run a set of shell scripts, and that's what is going to restart the service or restart the server, or to that extent, put up a maintenance page on their own website, right? So yeah, auto remediation is possible. It depends on what kind of configurations can you use on Rundeck and integrate it through webhooks with our alert conditions.
Let me try this again. Can you see me okay? Is it back? Is it working?
Yes.
You took a different tack there. You talked about something else. I thought you were going to talk about this guy down here in the bottom corner. I thought you were going to talk about that. That's so
your screen is frozen, I think.
Oh, is it? Hang on. Let me do this. It's like the equivalent of a reboot. How about now? It's like, yeah, see this guy down the bottom here, right?
Oh, okay, my bad.
Yeah,
Yeah, I should.
Yeah, I thought,
Go ahead.
we could talk about that. I wasn't going to mention it, but I mean, hey, look, right there it is in the bottom corner. So we've got this guy, incident workflows, right? And yeah, this will help you in your quest for auto remediation. That's what it is, right? Look, what does it do? Set up custom workflows to automate how you deal with common problems and actions, right? So yeah, without going into it in too much detail, because I mean, yeah, we're up to nearly an hour now, and we still need to get onto alerts. Yes, we can use this in order to fire off workflows that can then be programmed to auto remediate stuff. So yes, there is a mechanism for it. All right, so it's a great question. Yep, this guy here. So incident workflows. So we've got incident intelligence, and then once we ingest, enrich, correlate, and output, we can also trigger a workflow. So it does a lot of things. Now, thanks for the questions, guys. By the way, this is good. It's nice that you're all engaged and we're asking a lot of things. it as I said, it makes a big difference to us, right? We like it. So let's now go over to our alerting. Okay. So we're going to need to spend more time over here. Now, at the moment, I have currently no open incidents that I can show you, but I can come over and grab one that has closed. So I can show you what they look like when they fire. So we have over here, none of them are really very interesting looking, but we will look at this one. Okay. Here we have an incident with, an incident number being auto-generated, and we can see it's currently closed. It was open for an hour and 4 minutes, and there were 2 critical violations. I mean, there still are, but there are no active critical violations. That's what that's saying. And there was 1 warning violation. And obviously, it's really easy for you guys to see that, right? So you can come and have a look at it down here. Now, what were the issues? Well, we can see that, interestingly, this particular incident has a low AppDex score being violated, right? So we say, okay, AppDex went down on one of our apps, so our pet clinic app, and we can see what the condition was. So our AppDex actually went below 0.7. So last session we would have learned, oh, that's bad. We want an AppDex above 0.85 to 0.95, somewhere around there. So what can we infer from this? We can say the performance on New Relic Pet Clinic was impacted. That's what we can say, right? For at least 5 minutes, our performance went down, and that generated a critical violation. So I need to talk to you guys about terminology here, because the terms in New Relic alerts are very specific, okay? A critical violation occurred. Now, just 1 minute before that, a warning violation occurred. Not an incident. We're not talking about incidents yet. We had a warning violation. We had a critical violation. Actually, if we look even before that, we had a different violation, a completely different critical violation. High CPU on a host name. So you see, I click on this and you notice that it changes, right? And if you see as well, sometimes this will appear like, look here, we detected anomalous behavior in web throughput. So in our, remember our golden signals? Yeah, in our traffic and in our errors. So proactive detection is proactively checking your 4 golden signals for weird stuff. And this is telling you, that's kind of why I like to start with the AI thing, because you often see it throughout. So although we have a set threshold that we have defined as the user, the system has also picked up, you just told me to watch for performance, but I'm also seeing increased throughput, increased errors at around the same time as a warning on performance hit. So, wow, that could be really, really useful. Is this helpful? Yes. Wow, that's amazing. But you can see that it gives me info. So yeah, we went into a warning state at 0.85. As we crossed over 0.85, we went critical at 0.7. Right. All right. This is just violations. One incident. Think of your incident as a container, right? My incident currently holds 2 critical violations and 1 warning violation. If I come over here to events, I will see everything that happened and the order with which it happened. So let's have a look. This is important, really important. So I'm going to go to the bottom. While there was just a few, violations, 2 critical and 1 warning, there were a lot of events. Now, the very first critical violation opened. Okay, stay with me, guys. High CPU on this host. Bang, open violation. What happens next? We opened an incident. Okay, really important that you understand this sequence. This incident was created as a result of this critical violation opening up. Now, another point I want to make to you guys. Critical violations cannot exist out on their own. They have to be placed inside a container, which is an incident. All critical violations must live inside an incident. If there is no incident to put them in, we must create one. And in this case, that's what you can see. Critical violation occurred. There was no open incident for that particular alert condition that was violated. So the alert policy created an incident for us. And then we notify. Okay, so who gets notified? Whoever is listed on the policy. There's no routing rules that occur here inside an alert policy. We'll go into more detail than that in a minute. But at the time of opening the incident, we send notifications. In our case, we sent an email to this email address. We also sent a webhook with the same info. And let's go back to our front page. What else did we do? And we also sent, so we sent to 2 webhooks and 1 email. All good so far? Now, few minutes later, I mean, it kind of makes sense, actually. Our host had high CPU. Perhaps that impacted on the performance on the app that the host was hosting. And sure enough, straight after, there was a warning violation that our app performance is dropping. A minute after that, our app performance dropped even further. We have a second critical violation that got created on a different entity. First was on host CPU. This is on app performance. For it to all make sense, we presume that it's the app on the same host. That would make sense, right? You can set it up where it doesn't do that, but then that would be a bad alert, right? You want the things to make sense and be correlated somehow. So in this case, we're saying this app on this host, right? Now, you need to understand that there are things missing here, right? No further notifications got sent. Really, really, really important. We've already notified you. We sent the notification. And inside the notification was information saying this host has high CPU. A couple of minutes later, the host app's performance drops. We alert you on it. We send a warning and a critical violation and enrich the incident. But we've already notified you that there's an issue. We shouldn't need to notify you again. This is the logic, okay? You can change the logic, by the way, but I'm telling you that this is the logic at the moment for this particular incident. Now, critical violation, both of them close. The warning violation closes. How do they close? Typically, it's a reversal of condition, right? Or you can manually close them yourself. In this case, it will be because the reverse condition was met. So if I say, I need you to send me a critical violation when the CPU on that host goes above 70% for 10 minutes, then the violation will auto close when the CPU goes below 70 for 10 minutes. But it has to be for an equal amount of time. So you can make it so violations are quick to open, quick to close, or they'll be slow to open, slow to close, right? But they're never going to be quick to open, slow to close, and vice versa. Anyway, it all closes by itself. And look, now we notify again to all channels. So again, if I put 10 notification channels on an alert policy, all 10 get every notification all the time. So all 3 notifications get sent. Sounds okay? Makes sense? I think the thing I really want you guys to understand is that we had an app that was alerting, we had a host that was alerting, 2 separate conditions, but because those 2 conditions were put into the same policy and we had a particular setting on that policy, then we only received a single notification. And that's by design. So I'll just pause there for a second. See how we're going on that. Any questions so far?
I don't see any questions coming in.
Good, good, good. Or maybe not good. I mean, we love questions, but I'm just saying good as in I'm assuming you guys understand. So, yeah. Okay. Here's a question. A question came through. How did it correlate the app name and the host? That's a great question, right? Yeah, like it's actually, when you think about it, like, how does it know that this app is on this host, right? Well, I got a simple answer for you on that one. It doesn't know. You have to know. As the person that designs the policy, you must know it. Now, what does that mean? It means that if you don't know it, you can very easily set it up where it doesn't work, right? So I can, for example, pick my app, right, which I love so much, right? I work on my app all the time, right? And I put alerts on my app, but I could also put maybe Ganesh's infrastructure into my policy. So maybe Ganesh has his own app on his infrastructure, and I have my app on my infrastructure, but I accidentally set up my policy to correlate my app with his infrastructure. That wouldn't work very well, because I'll get alerted on his infra if that's firing, but it has nothing to do with my app. Okay, so it's a thing to be mindful of. You need to understand your environment when you set up the policy. And obviously, if you're going to set up application level performance alerts and you also add infrastructure into the same policy, you probably want to set thresholds on the infrastructure that will correlate to app performance. And then, you might have 4 hosts and 1 distributed app that runs on those 4 hosts, and you'll have a number of different infra policies. 1 policy. You have a number of different infrastructure conditions and a number of different application conditions that all ultimately correspond to my app performance is at risk. Look at the app. So when you're thinking of alert policies, I think you want to design them more with that mindset in mind. So you think, okay, because although we're talking about violations, I think when you design alert policies, you really need to start with notification channels in mind. So always when you're designing, start from who needs to be notified. So start with the team. Okay, I got this group of guys here. Well, what do they look after? What do they need to know? What do they need to be told about if that thing were to happen? And then that's when you go from the team to the conditions that you want to notify the team on. And then you need to decide, do they need to be notified on every single one of these? Or is it enough to tell them, guys, you need to look at this system because this system is experiencing multiple violations? So I want you to think as well in terms of, apps on infrastructure. You can also think of it in terms of, you might have a team that's looking after, 15 different microservices that all encompass one single service, right? Do you guys want to be receiving 15 different incidents across every single one of those individual microservices? Or do you want them to roll up to a single incident for the service? and you might have 5 or 6 of those microservices all violating at the same time, but it's rolled up into one incident. So this is all part of design considerations when you're building your alert policies. And it all comes back from that one question, like how does the app name and the host correlate? Well, you have to do it. So that's what I'm saying. It's a great question. And a variant on that question, violations are classified belonging to the same incident. How does it happen? It's driving me mad. Why are these violations? I'm going to put you out of your misery, guys. Look, here is how it happens, right? We'll go to the policy, right? Look at this. Phil has a training policy, right? I'm going to create my one. New alert policy. Look at that. Dan's alert policy. What a wonderful name. It's so descriptive. But this is if you press plus on new alert policy, guys, you will get to what is probably the most important page of New Relic alerting. This page here. Don't hit next. Understand what this means. Incident preference. This is the killer for everybody. How is it for you in your region, Ganesh? We find everybody. This is what stuffs everybody up with alerting and incidents. Do you find that?
So yeah. So for me, I see people just enabling it by policy when they want to have alerts, like for example, a particular team, right? So we have a team who takes care of complete, excuse me, a team that takes care of complete product search feature in an e-commerce application. So they are more worried about getting alerted only when anything that's related to product search is broken, right? For example, with the Microsoft backend service that is failing or the infrastructure that is facing some issues, all those conditions are within this policy, and that's where they have by policy. Just alert me if anything goes wrong with my service, and that's how the by policy thing works for me, right?
100%.
And by condition, and by condition comes when again, I don't belong to a horizontal. Like say, I don't belong to a product search team, but then I belong to a DevOps team who takes care of infrastructure for product search, for cart, and also to the checkout teams, right? I want to get alerted when something goes wrong with the server across any of these teams. I don't care. So that's when I set up conditions on different infrastructure. Yeah. So that's how it fits. It fits for me.
I like your example. It's really, really good. It makes a lot of sense. A few things to point out here, guys. The first setting, the one that you see here, right, by policy, right? This is the default. It's deliberately the default. That's why they make it the default. This is the least noisy policy. It is the quietest policy. It is the one that will bother you the least. Okay, I can't say that any other ways, right? That's why we put it like this. Every condition that you put into this one policy will ultimately roll up into one incident if they all violate at once. And this is the key. You need to understand that if they violate at completely different times when there's no other incident open, they will generate an incident. But let's read it. All the violations within this policy will be grouped into one incident. This policy can only have one incident open at one time. That's the important thing. So yes, if you're in a team responsible for looking after a service as a whole, including all of the components, and it's your team that looks after 10 entities, maybe a couple of apps, a couple of hosts, and it's all one thing, and it all provides one overarching service, you might define 10 or 15 different conditions that are extremely important to the operation of that service, and you have one policy that governs that one service and your one team that gets notified. And yeah, you've got 10 conditions, but if any of them violate, one incident gets created. All right, so that's the example that Ganesh was giving. The other one I often will do is I'll say something like, over here, this is a different thing. But if I was to look at, I'm going to need APM for this account. This is a good example, guys. So here, look, I've got 3 instances of the same application running across 3 different hosts. Okay, so it's a distributed service. Look, some of the the bandwidth gets split between these 3 instances. I could put these 3 entities all into the same alert policy and leave it with by policy as a setting. And it will mean that if 1, 2, or 3 of them violate, it only ever generates 1 incident. Because if the 3 of them are all load balanced and they're doing exactly the same job and they're functioning as one service, it makes sense that you want to alert on the service, not on every individual entity. I mean, if 1 thing goes critical, I need to look at it. It's the same as if 3 things go critical, I still need to look at it. So that's where this policy really, really works. Because if 3 things go critical and you need to still take 1 action, you don't need to be bombarded 3 times. You just get 1 message, say, hey, you need to look at that service. It's a problem, right? Now, I love your other example, Ganesh, where we're talking about by condition, right? Which is where you're now looking after, you've got your things that you need to look out for, but you work cross team. So everything that you need to look out for can become your own set of conditions. And then you just apply that across the different teams and the different services that you need to look out for. But you know that each service is individual, right? Each one is separate to every other one. So service A goes critical on a condition that you're monitoring, but that has nothing to do with service B. You will want a separate incident when service B also goes critical, right? Why you still put them into the same policy is because you still want the notifications to go to the same person, you, right? So the question then becomes, often it flows on from this. Once we try to determine which preference we use, people then ask, well, shouldn't I just create a separate policy for every single condition? I will say no. You create the policy based on the channels. You then decide how frequently we're going to smash that channel with notifications based on your incident preference. Okay? So if you're creating what might be 20 different conditions across 50 entities, but ultimately you want to notify 1 team of all of that stuff, then yeah, you can throw it all into 1 policy because it'll hit 1 channel. Remember, we don't have routing here in the alert policies. If I set up this alert policy to have 3 notification channels, every notification will be sent to all 3 of those channels anytime an incident is opened, acknowledged, or closed. And that's another really, really important point that I want to make to you guys. We do not notify you when you have a critical violation. See, that's a pause for effect, right? We do not notify just because there's a critical violation. We notify because an incident got created. Okay, now how does an incident get created? Yeah, because there was a critical violation that occurred and there was no open incident already. So you get a critical violation. If there's no open incident, we generate an incident. The incident generates the notification. It's a super important distinction because if you use the default setting and you might have 5 entities with 3 or 4 conditions in this policy, The first one that violates will notify you. And while ever that incident is open, any subsequent violations will be added to the existing incident. You won't lose the violations, guys. I know some of you think, oh, but I won't know about it. If you address the incident, you will always know about the violations. Always, if you address the incident. If you are just reading your notifications, you will not see the additional violations coming through. But this is probably the most important thing in terms of understanding how New Relic alerting will or won't notify you when certain things happen. Now, again, I'll pause, this time not for effect. I'm pausing to see if, well, Ganesh, did you want to add anything to that? I can go on about this for hours and hours, but I'd like to see if you have additional things to say.
Nothing to add, but then there is a very interesting question that someone asked, which is very much related to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So someone asked a question and then said, hey, if I set up infra alerts that point to an application performance issue, and if that together is affecting the AppDex, Wiz can analyze violations and then inform me. And that's exactly the case that you're talking about now, right? Where if you have a backend application that's running on a specific host, you set up an alert and you say by policy, and then you have three conditions within that, right? Where you say, hey, if my server goes beyond 80%, alert me. And if your server is going beyond 80% of CPU, and if that's impacting your application performance, and then just spiking up your response time from like 1 second to 10 seconds, and that obviously impacts your AppDex, and all these three conditions or all these three violations would be rolled up into just like one alert, and that's what your notification channel would receive. Right?
Yes.
That's a classic example of having three conditions in just one policy, and that policy sending alert only to one person as one alert, and still recording all three violations for your reference.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely true, and that is a use case for that. I mean, another, yeah, I tend to think of this. I mean, if we're looking at a modern environment, right? So we're looking at a modern environment. Let's say I have one service, right, and it does one thing. Like I have a site that, but it's broken up into, let's call it 12 containers, right? So let's say I've got one site, it's broken into 12 containers on 2 hosts, right? And I've got this nice little Kubernetes cluster across 2 hosts. I've got 12 containers running there. But ultimately, I have one team. Like I got 3 guys that manage the whole thing, right? So they manage the app, and they need to know how the app is performing, and they also manage the 2 hosts, and they manage the cluster. So in this case, that's a good example where you might say, well, ultimately, if anything were to happen to that unit as a whole, right? The infrastructure, the cluster, the app, the whole service, right? This is assuming it does one thing and you got one team that looks after the whole lot. Conceivably, you might have about 10 or 20 different conditions that are important for those 3 guys to be notified on. But it's really one problem. The incident and the notification should say, you need to look at this thing. And that's the idea behind it. It's not, we're not giving you a huge amount of detailed information so that you can resolve the problem without ever looking at it. It's more about saying, hey, you need to look at this thing. And it directs someone to it. And at that point, they see that there might be an incident that has been enriched with 8 critical violations on one of the hosts and a couple of the pods, and there might be a bunch of things, but all those things will be related, and maybe even you've got some AppDex score in there as well. So yes, your performance is suffering, but they're all related and combined into one. The idea is only one notification would have been sent out. All right, but if that same team of guys, maybe those people, they are responsible for managing all the Kubernetes clusters, and there are about 15 of them, and they're all completely unrelated from each other, well, then you might change it. You won't go by policy. You'll say, well, I'm going to go by condition, or I'm even going to go by condition and by signal. And by condition and signal, we might say something like cluster has not enough resources, right? That's the condition. And then the signal becomes all the different clusters. So you'll get a separate incident on every single cluster, even if they're creating the same violations, right? If these are different entities on different infrastructure, you would want it to say, no, one team looking after all this stuff, but that problem is not related to this problem. So I need it to be two completely separate incidents. If this thing triggers and that thing triggers, send me two notifications. So yeah, you really need to think about it when you create these, to create them in an ideal way. Are the entities related? Who needs to respond? And it's these things that need to be resolved before you can set up a really coherent alert policy. Okay. Other questions?
I think that's all. We had like a couple of questions which I answered them.
Oh yes.
So
Okay.
we good.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that. I noticed one of the questions, I was just reading it and it disappeared because you answered it. Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah. So, all right, another question's come through, and we'll spend about 5 more minutes on this, guys, and then we'll take a break, okay? But let's just go a little bit further, because a question came through just now. I'm going to take us to the next step, right? We're just going to say by policy for the minute, and we'll go to the next bit. Trust me, it all gets easier from here. Like we've gone to the top of the hill, we're now riding downhill. It's easy. So we need channels to get notifications. We'll come back to that. We need alert conditions. Let's define a condition right now. Oh, create a condition. Now, sometimes I get the question, well, what can we alert on in New Relic? Can we alert on anything we want? And if you see the default setting where we currently are, we got this guy here, NRQL. Call it NRQL or NRQL. And this is basically a yes to that question, right? Can we alert on anything in New Relic? So my question is, can you query it? If you can query it, you can alert on it, and that's it. So generally speaking, if you're ingesting data into NRDB, well, guess what? You can query that. And if you can query it, you can alert on it. So almost any conceivable thing that you can think of, you can generate an alert for. Now, this becomes really, really cool later on, and this is why I'm strongly plugging the UPR class that you should attend afterwards. When you guys define SLIs and SLOs in your environment, and then you come back and you define alert conditions that will alert you on triggers that you guys have built from a business requirement perspective. So yes, of course you can alert on CPU is above 80%, right? But you can also alert on things like, I want to know specifically if the error rate goes above that level and the latency on that app goes to this level, then, if that happens, then alert me, right? So you can trigger on just about anything, right? So long as your query returns a numerical value, then we can apply a threshold to it and we can alert you on it if it crosses that value. So, and generally most queries can be manipulated to the point where they return just a numerical value, right? So yeah, if you have a query that returns you a table, yeah, you can't alert on a table. But if you reduce that table to a single value, right? Like maybe a number of entries or an average of one of the fields, something like that, then yeah, alerting is easy. We'll come back and look at that later. Let's do a quick, simple one at the moment. I'm going to define an alert for an application, right? And it's saying, oh yes, look, this thing is cool. We should use this. Do you remember this? You remember NRQL used to be over here, Ganesh? It was kind of like the afterthought. It's like, oh yeah, you might want to use that, but it's sort of the last resort. Now it's like front and center, and it's the default value. Do you remember? It used to be over here. Yeah, it was like the last thing that you'd pick is NRQL, but now it's the first one.
Yeah. So is this also because we are planning to recommend NRQL to a lot of our customers? Is this because of the quicker data that we are going to get? And would you know why did we prioritize NRQL?
I think I don't know what the design reasons were for changing that over to there, except for what I can guess is that maybe people didn't realize. I think it just got overlooked, but it's super powerful and it answers the question of, can I alert on this in New Relic? And the answer is yes. If you can write a query, you can alert on the query. And so this puts it front and center, because if I don't pay attention to what I'm doing and I say, oh yeah, whatever, yeah, next, define my threshold, first thing it does, it says, all right, write your query. Like, what is your threshold, right? So I might say something. I mean, I could do it, quite easily if I'm on the training account. So I could say something like, let's say, select the average duration of from my transaction where the app, and don't worry about the querying, guys. For now, we'll talk about it later. Where app name equals, we'll pick this one app, right? But my point is, I'm able to reduce some data down to a single value, right? So a single value at a point in time, right? So this is the average amount of time that my transactions take from Pet Clinic. If I don't get the average, right? If I'm asking for raw values, it's going to go, you can't do that, right? How am I going to come up with a decision as to whether you've crossed the threshold or not if you're not reducing your data to a single value that I can analyze against the threshold? So yeah, I can get the average duration, or maybe I want to test my throughput, right? So I want to say, look, just count all the records, right? Again, because I'm aggregating the data, I'm able to evaluate it easily. So that's what I mean. It's a perfectly valid query to do this, but when you're alerting against it, you can't do this. So there's a be more things that we'll talk about. Ooh, how do I do that? More things that we talk about tomorrow. Next week, session 4. It's our next session, right? So yeah, we're counting up all our transactions. Now, this is now the throughput on the transactions that my Pet Clinic app is processing, right? You can see it's around 1,500. I can come down here and I can say, we're going to go with a static threshold type, and you can see here, open a violation when the query returns a value above, and currently it's above 1, which is pretty low. So we're going to say when it goes above, let's call it 1,700, right? And you can see it's put a threshold there, right? It says, okay, well, here we are, we're at critical threshold, but you notice that we've crossed the critical threshold quite a number of times, right? And it says, okay, well, you've crossed it a bunch of times, but you didn't stay over it for a sustained period of 5 minutes. So we will just consider it just to be a minor spike, and it's not worth notifying you on, which I would argue is a really good thing. But, I can play around with this value and I can determine, at what level. See, we're going to violate there. We're almost, see, we go below 1,500, but we went above at one point, and we have not gone below and stayed below for 5 minutes at any one point since we violated that first moment. So you can play around with this kind of stuff, and this helps you to understand whether or not your violations will trigger. Obviously, you can add warnings. There's a new one that you can add here called the loss signal threshold. So if you stop, like this thing starts returning nothing at all, it'll say, oh, okay, this is a different problem, right? Actually, why I came in here, one of the things under additional settings, I got a question on this, and I wanted to come in and address this one point. But when do you use a runbook URL? I can be cheeky here and I can just say, well, when you have a runbook. So if you have a known, what I mean is if you have a known standard procedure to follow based on the conditions that you are setting up that are about to be violated, yeah, definitely stick it in there, right? The idea here is, perhaps you're away on holidays and you don't want to be disturbed, right? So the person that's come in that doesn't understand the violation is the one that needs to respond to it. So you want to have the appropriate steps there so that they go, okay, if this is a known issue, yes, when we see this, you actually need to go in here, go to that system there, restart that service, do that one thing, and, delete those, or clear those logs out or whatever it is, and then the service should restore itself. So it's a known runbook. Yeah, stick the URL in there. I used to say, stick any info about the condition in there, but hey, we now have this new thing, right? A custom violation description. So we now have a description field. We never had this. This was a feature request for a long time. So yeah, if you don't have a set procedure on how to resolve this thing, but you are setting up a condition and you want to be able to describe it, at least give the reasons for why you have this condition defined in this field here. Okay, and then we've kind of got, I told you violations will close when the reverse condition is met. You can also say close them after a set number of days so that you don't, well, hopefully you shouldn't anyway, but so that you don't have these perpetual violations that are just constantly open because you've set very bad thresholds, right? If I was to say, if my throughput goes above, 100, yeah, this thing will violate one time and then it will stay open forever if I didn't have this. So now it'll stay open for 30 days and then drop off. So yeah, that's your runbook there. And we're just going to say, yeah, look, save that. Oh, we couldn't because we had that open. Let's remove the custom condition because we actually aren't going to be defining a runbook and a custom condition. What else did I miss? Okay, dismiss that. I need to also put a name. Condition A. I'm giving you really descriptive conditions on how to not set things up. Don't name things the way I name things, guys. It's a bad idea. Because, I mean, if this thing triggers, right, it'll eventually send a notification. I mean, at this point, it'll send it to nobody, but it'll say condition A. And I'll go, like a week from now, I will have no idea what condition A was, even though I was the one that wrote it. So it's a really good example of what not to do. Anyway, I promised you guys a break. I think we should have a break. When we come back, we can talk about the other two threshold types. Very good spot there. They are kind of important, and I should show you how to use the other two threshold types. All right, so I'm getting 37. Let's make it 38. It's about to go to 38. Let's come back at 48. All right. We all okay with that? 10-minute break, starting now. There you go. Mine's just gone 38. All right. See you guys back here in 10 minutes.
See you in a bit.
Okay, guys, we back from our break. Okay. I saw some questions coming through, kind of just as we were about to go on break. Some really, really good ones, right? And I'm just gonna send you guys some links that I think will answer those questions. But so the questions were along the lines of Terraform. Okay, so a couple of people asked, and it was saying, okay, we're doing things in Terraform, and can we do our alerts in Terraform as well? And the answer to that is definitely yes. And I've sent you guys some links that should hopefully at least help you on that one. But yeah, it allows for the creation of alert policies, notification channels, alert conditions, all of that stuff. Incidentally, all of this stuff can be done via the REST API anyway, right? So you can even go in and do it that way. But yes, in fact, yeah, not only can it be done, I would say that we recommend it to be done. Like it's actually it is the best way to set up your alerts, especially if you've got any sort of ephemeral environments, things that you're scaling out or building up, tearing down, that kind of thing. You really want, as the environment grows and shrinks and changes, for alerts to automatically be applied to those objects as they come and go. So yeah, not only possible but encouraged. So there are some links there that should hopefully get you guys started on that stuff. Just looking through some more of the questions. Yeah, in terms of exporting the policies, yeah, you can always you could always do, like, I mean, I'm just thinking of I've got the REST API in my head now. I mean, yeah, you can always do a get on the policies themselves, and retrieve all that data, in a JSON format. So that's definitely possible. This one, maybe, I don't know, Ganesh, maybe you can help on this one. I don't have an iPhone. How's it?
Neither me.
All right. Okay, I guess you can't answer it. Do you know, I do have the New Relic app on my phone, and I used it once, like long time ago. That's terrible, isn't it? See, the thing is, I don't have to, I'm not on call or anything. I don't have to respond to stuff, but I probably should use it. Like they got it here. Like, see, the New Relic, they got the app. um, I'm you kind of embarrassed me now. I'm like, oh, I never use it on my phone. So yeah, now I'm scrambling for, say how good is it for me to use it?
What's possible and what's not possible.
Yeah, it's logging in now. This is my first login in so long.
Yeah, hardly. I used it. I used it like a couple of times, I think, long back, just to look at some incident details. But it's more of a hybrid app, right? So
Yeah.
it opens up the mobile app pages on this one. So yeah, it's just going to.
Yeah. I know it's not you don't, I mean, yeah, the browser experience is very different. Like I do know that, but okay, look, I got, you can hear my phone. I don't know if you guys can see that, but yeah, you probably can't see it. But yeah, I've got, yeah, home, alerts, dashboards, NRQL, APM, key transactions, browser synthetics, mobile infrastructure, and settings. So that's all there on that menu down the side. So there is a whole bunch of stuff that I can do with it. I probably should play with it some more. There was even a separate app for insights. Yeah, I've got that one too. So yes, you can. Yeah, yes, you can use New Relic 1 from your phone, but in terms of full functionality, no. But there is some level of functionality available there. Let me see. Okay, so in the top. So a question came through with regard to customizing. Let me show you here. Yeah, so the question came through with regard to customizing this menu here. All right. I can come here, right? So if you see that, so the question specifically was related to Lambda, right? It's like, I don't like Lambdas. They're scary. Lambdas are annoying. Or maybe you do like them and you want more Lambda menus on there. But the point is, so there is a couple of menus here, right? And I'm happy to announce that it is possible for you to customize this navigation. And that is where you do it, right? So you can add and remove specific things from the navigation menu bar, which is a relatively new feature. You weren't able to do that before, so that's pretty cool. So yes, you can customize the nav bar if you want to. Good question. Thank you for that. What is a synthetic monitor? Do you want to do that one, Ganesh?
Yeah, sure.
Such a nice question.
Yeah, it's a very good question. One of my favorite features on New Relic is synthetics, right? So I always get super excited when I want to set up a synthetic monitor. So while you set up all the monitoring and then set up all the observability from the front end or from the back end or anything, and you know how your application is performing when something is actually going wrong, synthetic monitors will enable you as a user to check how things are working proactively. And that is when they play a very key role in uncovering any issues, and gives a really good experience in your how your customer experiences on what device from where and when. So we call synthetic monitors as ping checks on steroids, right? So it is something like you can set up a check on how your system is behaving, be it from a API health check or from how your browser is performing or what your customers experience, even before your customer starts complaining about it, right? To keep it in a simple way, you can set up a ping check for an API, or you can set up a page load, a complete browser page load check on any of your web pages, or you can literally create a Selenium script for a complete user journey and then simulate it on New Relic. And New Relic would take care of running it at a certain frequency that you have selected from a set of locations, again, which you have selected, and give you the stats on how things are looking.
Sometimes some of the questions that I get will be along the lines of, but Ganesh, if I've already got browser set up and I've got real-time monitoring coming through from my users anyway, and I can see actually what is happening in their browser, why would I need synthetics on top of that?
Yeah, so I already have an answer for that because I've already come through a use case pretty similar to that, wherein I have a customer who has their website just in Australia and in the US, right? And they have two different versions of this. everyone in the US is sleeping midnight, 2 a.m. their time, and the website broke. And I have a front-end monitoring and browser monitoring which is already set up, and I will start getting alerts and then failure notifications only when the US people wake up and then start using the website. But I really don't want to give that experience to my customers. So I want to be proactively notified when my website is down, even before my customer starts reporting to me. And that is where synthetic monitor really came handy. And the customers ops team got to know that, okay, something is going wrong. One JavaScript on the front end that was deployed in the late night messed up the complete layout. And that's when in the morning, once the US customers wake up and then start loading the website, there's nothing. Everything is broken on the page. So proactive monitoring is what the main use case of synthetic monitors is. And that's one of the classic examples that I came through. What do you think, Dan?
It's very nice. I mean, look, the truth of the matter is, guys, is that they complement really, really well. Just because you have browser, I mean, you get different info from each, right? I mean, I often refer to Synthetics as a worldwide distributed testing platform, right? Which is pretty awesome when you think about it, right? That's essentially what it is. And what do you want from a testing platform? You want to establish a consistent baseline. You can't get that from the customer, right? You don't know what browser they're going to open up the next time. You don't know what they're going to click. You don't know what they're going to do. So one of the cool things about Synthetics is that you can establish a solid baseline where you know that your tests from these locations, and by the way, there are 20 around the world at the moment, and they are fully managed by New Relic, but you can also define your own. But there are 20 locations around the world that you guys are free to use, and you can write your own scripts, or you can have just simple steps that go through and do things. You don't even need to own the URL, guys. I mean, maybe you're wanting to run checks against your competitor. You want to see how long they take to do stuff. Maybe that's one of your KPIs, right? You want to beat competitor X, right, in your performance. So you might hit your own site up, but you'll also hit them. And you go, okay, we're doing this and they're doing that. And you've got a bit of tracking going on. So yeah, there's a whole lot of use cases that you can do for it. Certificate checking.
That's a very interesting use case that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Have checks on your competitors and on yours, and then compare it.
That's
really good.
One of my students came up with that one. Yeah, and that's what they were doing it. They were actually doing it. So we want to know what their performance is like, because that's equally as important to them.
Wow, that's amazing. It's amazing. And but there are a couple of questions on who owns these locations, right? So all the locations that you're seeing on synthetic monitors are owned by New Relic, and we are the one who manage all the infrastructure there. It's just that when you want to test it, the testing is done from those servers, and then the results come to you. However, all the customers are also given options to set up their own private locations, from just in case if we do not have a specific location in our list of regions, you're free to set up your own private location and then use it for testing.
Yep, and we will, there's, we'll cover all this stuff in another session, guys. Don't worry about it. But yes, we will give you the container. You just, you pull it down and run it in your Docker environment or your Kubernetes environment.
Yep.
It's just it's like a one command thing. Set it up, bang, and it immediately runs. Right. So yeah, it's very, very easy to set it up and get it working. What I want to do now is break it up a little bit. There was another question that just came through. Baseline and outlier. That was actually from before break. So let me just quickly hit up baseline and outlier. Okay. So yeah, thanks for putting that on there again. I did say that we were going to address it after our break, so we'll do it right now. But let me just pick like an APM alert, just to make it simple. Let's look at our FoodMe application. So here's an app. We want, for example, maybe a a throughput, right? We want a throughput measurement, okay, on this, and we're saying, you can see this app has, yeah, what, 2,000 to 2,500 call counts, right? Actually, let me go back. Sorry. I'm getting carried away, and I meant to show this thing first. So we've got this guy here, which is an application metric baseline. So I showed you the static just before. I just wanted to show you that we also have this option, right, which allows you to define upper and lower boundaries on, on a set of data. Okay, so here we have web transaction time, so our latency for an app. It looks like we're about, whatever it is, 10 milliseconds. And you notice that we've got these gray boundaries, upper and lower boundaries, right? Now, these are what's going to decide whether or not this thing violates or not. So are we performing normally, right, as compared to ourselves? So this works well on apps where their performance will kind of maybe ebb and flow, right? You've got, you have more traffic during the daytime, less traffic at nighttime. Maybe latency also indicates that a little bit. Throughput might indicate that. So rather than having to set a very high threshold and, for most of the day, you're well below it, even though performance might be abnormal, you don't have a way to record that. This lets you have a little bit of an upper and a lower bound. You can have just upper if you want, if you're measuring something like web transaction time, right? If you're measuring throughput, you may want to also keep the lower boundary because you might want to know about throughput drop-off as well. So for different things, you might set upper and lower, or just upper or just lower. And then this determines how narrow the bands are, how sensitive it is. So get more violations, get fewer violations, right? So that's one thing I wanted to show you guys, that you can define an application metric baseline which looks at previous data from either 2 days or 7 days, non-configurable. It'll be either 2 or 7, and you can then ask it to configure violations based on the previous data that it has been seeing. Now, go to the last thing, and I'm going to answer the last question. This, I'll go back into my original condition. So in NRQL conditions, there are a couple of different settings that you can apply. And you saw me do the simple one here called static. All right. And we've got, so here it's just simple, right? We've got a specific number, we go above certain value, and there it is. Like, we'll take that one out, and let's change this query up a little bit. So yeah, okay, we can at least see. This is really straightforward now. Anytime we're above the line, it's static, it doesn't change, nothing different, we are going to violate, right? Now, let's do this. Let's say where app name is, so we want to count all the transactions. Where app name is like, let's do app name is like pet clinic. That should be. Okay, so now I'm filtering to what should be pet clinic 1, 2, and 3, and then break it up by app name. We'll do that. Yeah. All right. So the idea here is that I have, remember I said it always needs to return a numerical value. Yeah, it needs to always return a numerical value, but you can have it where you get more than one data set being returned. In this case, on this account, in my training account, I know that I have 3 apps called New Relic Pet Clinic 1, 2, and 3. So I've said return anything that says something in addition to New Relic Pet Clinic, right? So it needs to match all of that. And if there's any value after that, only include those ones. And that's why we get only New Relic Pet Clinic 1, 2, and 3, right? So even the roll-up app, New Relic Pet Clinic, is excluded because it ends here. So that's how that query is formed. But the point here is that you have 3 objects, 3 entities that I can now apply tests to, right? And let me see. Do you know what? Why is it's not actually letting me change? Do I need to actually apply a whole new condition? That's a new, it didn't used to do that. It used to let me change it. Why is it? I'm on the right account, definitely.
Are you trying to set up for the outlier or the baseline?
I just want to change the threshold type. It's actually telling me so let me do it another way. Let me grab that query.
Yeah, just
close that.
Mm-hmm.
So before I could just switch between them, right? If I go add a new condition now, define a threshold.
Yep.
Yeah, so you see down here, I can choose between them. Somehow it stopped me from choosing, right? If I do this now, the query comes back, which is what I wanted to show you guys. And yeah, my UI on the other condition prevents me from changing it after the fact. But I haven't seen that before. Anyway, notice I can still set static and give it a value, call it whatever, 600, right? Or 1600 in this case. Whoops. There you go. So this thing violates, then do that. Now I can also do baseline. All right. And here, this is why I wanted to show you the APM one first. I wanted to show you the application metric baseline, because basically what happens is you take a set of data, you have an upper and a lower bound, right? And if you go outside of that bound, then we violate. Now, baseline does that, okay? So if you want the threshold to be a little bit flexible, so you want it to move if your data moves. See, it's not really a great candidate here because my throughput on these apps is pretty consistent. So this would be more when you want that threshold to be moving around a little bit as your data set moves. But just to show you what it does, you can define upper and lower boundaries, lower or upper, just like we talked about before. And then here's where we define, okay, if you go outside, and in this case, we've set to 3 standard deviations. So let's go, if you go outside by 1, it should, sometimes it doesn't appear on the graphic, but you see that we can define more or less.
Yeah, you might just want to get rid of the facet on top.
Yeah, I wanted to have it there for the outlier. Maybe I should have done outlier first. Yeah. If I do, yeah, I'll put it in after. Yeah. So baseline works. No, don't enable Siri. Go away. Yeah, it's just not going to show it. Baseline works if you facet or if you don't facet, right? It works actually either way. I think the UI here only displays it if you're not faceting. So with one set of data, it's showing me, okay, here's your boundary. And if you go outside of those bounds for a period of time, we're going to violate more or less often, right? You just make the boundary bigger or smaller. And you see here by the number of standard deviations, and it determines. Okay, so that's baseline. Same like application metric baseline or browser metric baseline. You have those things in APM and browser as well. And the last one to look at here is outlier, and that's why I had the facet statement on there, because outlier doesn't work unless you're applying a facet. So this one here requires multiple data sets in order to be able to. I thought I did a copy. No, I didn't. I just did a delete. So when I go to paste the facet, it's like pasted the whole query. Anyway, so here we go. What this one does is, come on, give me my query back. Oh, no.
URL select conster, yeah.
Form a good query first. There you go. Your query makes no sense, Dan. I will show you nothing. Okay, so here I got my outlier, right? And what this is doing is it is looking for data that is outside of the boundaries that's normally defined. So this works very well when you might have something like you're expecting a certain pretty consistent memory utilization or CPU utilization across a whole set of hosts, and you want to know if one of them all of a sudden starts running hot for a period of time. Things like that, right? I'm expecting this collection of entities to all be performing in this way, and in the event that one or two do weird things, please notify me. Okay. You could also use this for things like app decks on all your apps. So if you've set your app decks up so that all your apps are reporting in at 92, like 0.92, you'll say, hey, notify me if it goes below 0.83 or something like that. You could easily do that. We've got that in APM anyway, but I'm just saying you could use it as an outlier, right? So that's what static, baseline, and outlier looks like, and what it does. Okay. So that was a good question. I hope that makes sense. What I am going to do right now is give you guys a little bit of something to do, because I think you guys might appreciate something to get your hands on. So if you can see my screen, just going to give you an opportunity to get a little bit of hands-on here with the alerts. If you haven't done it before, this is a good idea. Now let me send you guys the login details again, because I'm quite certain probably some of you have forgotten the login details. Okay, so the URL, user, password will be. Okay, you guys should be able to just copy paste that stuff and it'll work okay. You can log into the training account and do the alerts lab. It says 10-15 minutes. What I'm going to do, I actually want to keep this up only for about 5 minutes or so. And so just maybe take a screenshot of it, okay, so that you've got it, because there's another lab. I want to give you guys 2 labs, right? But rather than you guys finish the whole thing, I'll give you some minutes now to get going on it and get started. But I'm then going to change the slide over, okay? So just make sure you've got this. So you've got your instructions available right now. Ganesh, correct me if I'm wrong. We did cover key transactions before, didn't we? We did that last week.
Yes, someone asked a question last time, and that's when we covered key transactions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part
Right.
of APM, so we are waiting there.
Okay, so these are high level instructions, guys. It's just go in, create an alert for a key transaction, create an alert against an AppDex score on the Pet Clinic app, which you guys would have seen that I just showed you just then, and read this as essentially just set up any threshold you feel like against one of the apps just to test it out for yourself, right? So it's not that I'm going to assess you guys or anything and that I need you to fulfill exactly these steps. This is really just a guide. Create a policy, create one or two alert conditions so that you get really familiar with it. Should only take you 10 minutes to do the labs. I'm getting 20 past the hour now, so I might come back in 5 minutes time and I'm going to switch the slide, which gives you another lab to do. All right, and then so that one will have a little bit more involvement as well. So might pause here for a sec, and we'll come back in 5 minutes. Hey guys, I'm going to change the slide now, okay? Make sure you screenshot it if you haven't already done. I'll give you 5 seconds, 4 seconds, 3, 2, 1. All right. Hopefully you guys won't say, hey, can you please go back to the previous slide? It usually happens. So I know most of you are probably still working on that first one, okay? But this one here is kind of a nice one. It's an interesting one. And it has you creating a notification channel using the webhook that we have available, right? So we actually have a webhook URL which accepts notification.
Then you
Yep.
know what? I can still say the first slide.
Oh, sorry.
There you go. Now I can say the
Is it good
second
now?
one.
Is it good? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Good. So the second one. So this one's more involved, right? So I really want you guys to be able to do this one. But we have a webhook that is set to receive notifications, and it will display. It'll display things on a page if you send, payloads to it, right? So this is the right down here at the bottom. This is the indicator, right? So that's not the webhook, right? This is the one that you need to use, right? That is going to receive the notification. So let me just jump over here, and I want to quickly show you. So I'm going to go back to my policies, and that's what I want to see, right? That's fantastic. Look at this. There was only 2 policies here before. You guys have been doing the lab. This is so good. Oh, fantastic. Anyway, I'm happy about that. Let me jump into Dan's alert policy for a second, because I'm now going to create a notification channel. So this is something I haven't really shown you guys, so that's why I want to show it to you now. I'm going to go into notification channel, add one, and you can see that we've got a number of, see here, look, this is a number of channels. Now, this is really important. What you're going to find is if you just try to add a notification channel to your policy, that you won't have an option. It won't work, right? Let's say I want a webhook. There are no webhooks, right? So anything I want to add, I can't do it from here. I actually need to define it first. So this is really just to attach existing notification channels. So let me jump back here. This is for defining channels. And you can see here that we have a number of channels already defined. These are the users who are on the account. Now, I'm going to create a new channel. And in this case, so I'm going to create a webhook, and we'll call it ops nowhere. All right. And what do we want to do? We want the URL. Actually, let me grab that URL. So we want the URL to be that there. So that's where we're going to send notifications, to that URL. Now, the other thing that I need to do is, just for this exercise, you don't always have to do this, right? But for this particular exercise, I'm going to add a custom payload. That's because this webhook is expecting this, right? And I need to include the element called team name, right? And then you define a value. So I'm gonna grab that team name, and I'll come back here to my webhook, and I might just put it right here in the top. So how to do that? I'm gonna go, there you go, team name. So that's very specific, right? It needs to be team name, just like that, because that webhook is expecting this in the payload. And then I just need to name it something, right? So I'll call it, we'll call it team Ganesh. right? So it's Team Ganesh. Right, and don't forget that damn comma at the end, because I'm so good at forgetting that thing. But we do that and create the channel. Channel is created. I can test it, see if it works. It'll send something to the channel, and I got a 200, so it works. Got it. And at this point, it's still not in use, but it has been defined. So I can now go back to policies and I mean, I could have done it from channels, but I'm going to do it here. And I'm going to say, okay, add to notification channel. And now when I say webhook, look at that. You guys have been following on, right? So that's the one that I just set up there. Update policy. We now have 4 webhooks available, all right? And I've got my one defined against my conditions. So when my condition violates, it will send a notification to that webhook. So this is a really, really good thing. It's a very handy thing to do. It's also something that we will get you guys to do much later on when you're wanting to do some measurements and understanding of how you're, I mean, I can show you this, right? So this dashboard that I'm showing you right now, this is not something I'm going to go through today. This takes a while for us to cover it in a fair bit of detail, but this is all about improving how you respond to your incidents and improving your alerting mechanisms, okay? The point I'm making here is all of this data that you see on every one of these widgets and is appearing really nicely on this dashboard has come from the fact that we have these alerts that fire and we are sending notifications to a specific webhook so that we can ingest the notification data and analyze it a lot better. So the lab that we're giving you is kind of setting you up for being able to then come in and do some advanced alert quality management and start to properly analyze these notifications that are coming through to see if they're useful or not. So let me, right, there's your lab back on display. And once you have your alert policy with your condition and you have the webhook attached to that policy, you should be able to send a test notification and get a result that appears on that indicator that you see down the bottom. And it should look like that. So I can see a couple of you have already done it, right? Now, notice that they're coming up green, right? They can actually change color as well. So this is because we've sent a test notification, right? If we go back and we were to look at the payload, right? The JSON payload also contains things like violation state, and it tells you if it's a critical violation or not. So when an actual notification gets sent, not just a test, if one of your conditions triggers as a critical violation, then this thing should go red. So it gives you a nice, easy way of saying, hey, that thing's gone bad, bang, show up as a screen. I heard an example, Ganesh. There was one organization, they had those, you know, those light globes, those like the smart light globes. I'm thinking we had these Philips Hue, they're called Hue. These specific light globes, and they can change color and they can dim and they can do all kinds of stuff, right? They're like these IP enabled light globes, right? Really clever things, right? Yeah, so I've had customers where they've said, oh yeah, they've got a, you know, in their support room that responds to all the incidents, that they've actually got light globes that can receive incidents, and the light will go red. So the room will go red when they have a
Wow.
critical events firing and things like that. And I mean, it's essentially this principle, right? So we've got these little dots that go red, but you could just as easily send it, send the notification to something else that can receive that and go, ooh, with this JSON payload, I need to go red,
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm going to leave this here for you guys. If you want to keep working on that for a little while, when we come back, because I will come back just before 4, I think I'll give you maybe 15 minutes to finish off the earlier lab and this lab. That'll take us up to about 10 minutes, and then I'll show you a couple of probably the only other bit with regard to alerts that we haven't really talked about was you can obviously define infrastructure alerts as well. So we'll have a bit of a look at that, and then we'll wrap up for the day. You can do the infrastructure alerts if you want, Ganesh. If you want to just show some simple ones that that are available, because there's some pretty cool
Yeah,
ones.
I can do that.
Okay, cool.
Sure.
Yeah, so guys, we'll be back in, what's that, 13 minutes. So keep working on this lab in the meantime. I know that some of you have already got the test working, but see if you can get a condition that violates that then forces a notification, like forces an incident to be generated, which will result in a notification being sent. So if you've done the test and you've got something appearing, that's great, but that's the first step. Be back soon. All right. Nice work, guys. I can see that looks like the alerts are working. So it looks like a bunch of you have got critical violations that are fired that have then gone and modified your indicator. I also note that some of you have applied some of the other notification channels, which is very nice as well. So yes, I'm receiving incidents now on my email. Very good. Critical violation opened. Right. All I have to say is I'm just glad that we have cleanup scripts that go through and wipe all that stuff out, because I would not want to manually go in that account and delete everybody's policy who's picked me as the notification channel. So yeah, it's pretty cool, guys. It typically happens that I get pinged a fair bit because I'm one of the users on the account. Anyway, as I said, 10 minutes left. We're gonna just show you a couple of little infrastructure alerts. We got some cool stuff like host not reporting, little things like that. There's actually quite a few good little alerts in infrastructure. And last thing I want to point out is I threw a link up there for you guys as well. It's got the first session in there. They're big, right? It's like a 1.5 gig file, right? So the first session's in there. The second one will go up this afternoon. This one, which is the third one, it'll go up later, right? So they take a while to render and do everything that they do in terms of presenting as one file so that I can upload them. But the second one will go up today, all right? But the link is there. It's in the chat, okay? Now, how to create? Yeah, it's the same. It's the same link. It is the same link. I'll just throw the next file into the same directory. How do you create? So you want to know how to create specifically this dashboard? Do you know what I'll tell you to do? I know who made that dashboard, right? And I can guess where I reckon you're going to find him, right? Now he's going to be on Discuss. I know for a fact he's always on here, right? If you go there, this is discuss.newrelic.com, and you were to ask about the webhook dashboard in NRU training, I'm giving him a lot of credit because the guy who did it is Phil, right? And yeah, he did it, and he's on that site all the time, and he answers questions all the time. He knows so much about New Relic, right? If you really want it, I would go there and just ask about the webhook dashboard in NRU training, and you might be pleasantly surprised. Right. So yeah, that's the location. But what I'll do is I'll thanks everybody. Thank you very much for paying attention. There was a lot to cover with regard to alerts. Probably a lot more than you realize. I'm going to leave it to you now, Ganesh. If you want to take us through the last couple of things, maybe give us a bit of a demo. I'm going to stop sharing this out. Give us a bit of a demo on some infrastructure related alerts. Just show us a couple of use cases or something. Yeah, that'll take us through till 4 o'clock.
Yes, pretty quickly. I'm going to do this. Are you able to see my New Relic One screen now?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. All right. So I am going to show you how an infrastructure alert is set up. Not taking a lot of time. I'm just going to do it quite quick because it's pretty straightforward, very easy. So I have I've set up this. Where is the test infra alert? Damn, I can't see it on my screen here. Let's see big screen there. Okay. What? Okay, forget about it. I'm creating a new alert policy here. I'm just going to say new infra policy, test infra policy, and I'm just going to leave it by policy and then create alert policy here. And now we already saw all different types of alerts based on NRQL, some few based on APM where we have set up alerts based on Amtex, right? So, but for infrastructure, it's a little different. So for infrastructure, whenever you want to set up a condition, we don't do it on this page, but then we rather take you to the infrastructure product page because there are too many options, right? There are a lot of options that you can set up alert on, especially for infrastructure, right? So if you see these options here, even just before giving the name, the alert types can be anything that is related to host or network process. If you have some containers running on this, container metrics, and are the processes running or not, storage metrics. And this guy here is very interesting, host not reporting, right? The reason why we have this one is that, let's say you have an infrastructure, you have a host on which you have deployed your infrastructure agent, and let's say your host completely went down. And obviously your infrastructure agent also went down with the server. How are you going to identify such situations? And that is where host not reporting is the one that's going to help you, where you select host not reporting and then just identify a specific host name based on a tag or any specific host. For example, I'm just going to pick this one and then say, hey, you know what? Filter out based on this host. And if the host is not reporting for like 5 minutes, trigger an alert for me, right? I'm just going to give this a name. Host not reporting, reporting NRU. Okay, I'm just going to create this condition. When I click on create this condition, whenever this host is not reporting any data, that is when the alert, my alert condition would start having a violation, right? So I'm just going to open this up in a new tab so that I can show this to you here on how the condition got added to the alert policy. If you see here, there are already a bunch of alerts that were already conditions that are already created by you guys and few by me as well. Let me see, where do I have this info policy? There you go. And if I go to alert conditions, the condition that I just created there started showing up here, right? I can very well create another alert condition here if I want to do it from right here. Just click alert condition, and then I can give another name saying host, or let's say a process CPU 5, right? And I can say for a specific process that is running on my host, I'm just going to filter it again based on one of these hosts here. Let's say filter this host, and I have and this one shows me all the processes that are running on this instance, right? I can say on this process, let's say entity and PID. For a specific PID, I can pick up based on the PID. Or I can say the process display name. This is more interesting. I can say anytime you see my Java process running more than 20% for at least 2 minutes, send me an alert, right? Now that I did not come from an alert policy to here, this one is going to show me the list of all the policies. I can just pick up the one that I created here, which should be test infra policy. That's it. And once the policy is selected here, I can just say create. And once the condition is created, I will have that reflected here. Just going to refresh the page to show you both the conditions. There you go, both the conditions here. So if the Java process on this instance goes beyond 5% of CPU, I get alerted on notification channel if I select any one of the notification channels, right? What I would suggest here is that because there are numerous types of alerts that we can pick up and numerous metrics for each one of them. For example, if I say storage metrics, right? I have extensive list of all of them, right? So what I would suggest is, based on your use case, please explore all of these alert types and different types of metrics that you can set up alert on, and different types of thresholds. And yeah, please ask us if you have any questions. Dan, do you think anything I missed?
I think that was perfect, Ganesh. I feel bad that I didn't give you extra time, so you could have done a full half an hour or something, because you just did it so well in that 7 minutes, just talking about that one particular thing. I really liked it. But we'll you know what, we got more time next week, and next week is when we're going to be talking about querying and dashboarding. And so what we will probably do is we will actually come back and revisit a little bit of alerting from a querying perspective. So it's all about NRQL dashboards and visualizing what we now understand, right, in terms of what we can kind of capture. So thank you very much. And I didn't even realize it was a public holiday for you today. But thank you very much for attending, even though I think a lot of you are on a holiday today. So that was really nice. But look forward to seeing you all back here again next week. And we'll be talking about alerting. Well, not alerting. Did alerting today. I'm losing it. We'll be talking about dashboard and querying. Yes, exactly.
And NRQL.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So take care, guys. Look forward to seeing you all back here again. We've completed the halfway. Okay, we've completed the halfway, and I've sent the link. The link is in the chat window at the moment for where all the previous sessions will be. Okay. So yeah, talk to you next week. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.